after us. You must carry on, I beg you.
I'll never make it. I'm out of breath.
Dans la boue de Dieu. Suzanne, just a bit more. We're almost there.
Hello Shination, I hope you're well. It's me, Shinrabit, and in my free time I've been playing a little Souls-like called Steelrising. And now I didn't have any intentions of making a video on this, but the more I played it I got really hooked. Also it got me thinking about the AA video game market and why I think it's important. So let's glitch, slash and dress extremely classy in this steampunk version of Paris 1789, and let me share with you my thoughts on Steelrising and the niche AA market. A quick summary of Steelrising. It's a Souls-like developed by Spiders. If you are not sure who they are, they created some of those random Sherlock titles, probably best known for Greedfall. Set in 1789 France, it's during the French Revolution, so it's full of everyone walking around with those curly wigs, and the king's got his knickers in a twist and he's decided to massacre everyone with his robot army. You play as the queen's automatronic called Aegis, and she sends you on this mission to stop this madness. The story for me was maybe the weakest part, as it did lose its steam, no pun intended, and I find myself not really caring for characters, except Aegis. She's actually pretty cool. She's by far the coolest looking. I really like the way she sounds when she speaks, very like robot like, and you can get some cool outfits to make it look really cool. Where Steelrising fails with its plot, it makes up for with its environmental storytelling and beautiful setting. It looks like this alternate universe of old France, the way the streets are narrow and maze-like. It's dark and damp, but then you can go to these areas where obviously the rich people live, and you've got these massive gardens with hedge mazes and beautiful structures that are crafted perfectly. The further you play the game, you unlock abilities, and these can help you traverse across the rooftops of Paris, and you can search every nook and cranny for the wide collection of creative weapons and outfits. I never really got tired of searching around, and with the inclusion of this compass, you can ensure you don't accidentally go forward into the story and miss valuables, but if you do, don't worry, you can come back to the old areas and re-explore them. Now let's talk about gameplay. This is the most interesting part, because as much as it tries to invent or expand on interesting mechanics, it does slightly get held back due to performance issues and a few questionable design choices. However, playing the game in 2022, I have become used to jank, and I can forgive a smaller title, and personally I never had anything too bad that ruined my experiences. A few graphical bugs, and I had one or two times where I was having a pretty intense fight and my character decided to T-pose, but that's fine. Anyway, Let's talk about the game and what it does right. First off, the combat feels fine. It's absolutely no Dark Souls, but if you've ever dabbled in any of the non-From Software Souls games, i.e. The Surge, Code Vein, then you will be pretty familiar with this. It's pretty clean and enjoyable combat that at times can feel a bit sluggish, which can cause you to take damage that feels slightly unfair. Nevertheless, Steel Combat focuses on two things in particular that stand out. The first one is called Immobilization. This is a bar that all enemies have, including bosses, and it will rise the more aggressive you are and the more you attack them. And obviously if you don't attack them, it goes down, but when you fill the bar, it will stagger them, which can leave you to use a devastating critical attack. This creates a really risk-reward system that makes you want to be more aggressive to keep their stagger bar up. And you also get this thing where you can instantly refill your stamina if you press your button at the right time, kind of like a quick reload in Gears of War. But with that, it can really lead to some feisty, all-out battles. And the second mechanic that I really enjoyed was the elements. You have ice, electric, fire, and each one of these have effects on the enemies. So I found myself using a secondary weapon, which was like an ice gun, and I was slowly chipping away at him, and they would freeze, which would give me opportunities to get some good hits in. Or I could equip my fire dagger, and again I'd chip away and get that fire bar up, and then it would set them on fire, and obviously that will damage them over time. This really opened up a lot of unique ways of fighting different enemies, and I know both of these mechanics are not exactly new, but they feel really refined and they work very, very well, and makes the fights feel fresh, and you have to be more creative in different situations. Now on to the Souls-like elements, and again it works fine even if it doesn't do that much new. You have your currency, your souls, you lose when you die, you have checkpoints which are bonfires, and they will respawn the regular enemies, and you can use these to upgrade Aegis or your weapons. You explore labyrinth-like levels that entwine and interlock, and you can create shortcuts, and the levels will sort of loop around. If you've played any Souls games, you will know what I mean. Now there isn't a massive amount of weapons and armour, but each one is designed very, very well, and they all feel super original, and it's satisfying every time you find, let's say, a fire clock on the end of a chain that you can whip around like Indiana Jones taking ballerina classes. The one thing I did find after a while is, despite being designed well, there was a lot of recycled enemies. There are even mini bosses on each level that are just the normal bad guys, just with a bit more health. I noticed there was a lot of reskinning. There would be an enemy that would be in the last area, but instead of having a flame head, he's got an electric arse. But this was probably due to budget restraints and time. However, the boss fights are super epic, really original, and with the mixture of the mechanics that I mentioned earlier, can lead to some really excellent exchanges. Maybe some of the best Souls-like bosses that are not from your Dark Souls, Elden Ring, Sekiro.
À la bonne heure, she's back.
Aegis, what a joy and relief to see you again.
Monsieur,
Welcome to our stronghold. I'm sure that everyone here is aware of the great debt we all owe you. As you can see, the most exhausted among us are growing stronger.
While the most determined are already planning our counterattack.
And I know earlier I didn't spend a lot of time with the story, because for me personally, after a couple of hours, it did lose me. However, there was a few side missions that I found were a lot more interesting and engaging. There were one or two moments where you could make a choice, and despite not really affecting the game, it made for a few interesting interactions with certain characters. And talking of the main plot, there will be some that will enjoy it, because I don't think it's objectively bad, but I've never really enjoyed political side of the narratives, and overall I don't think the delivery is that engaging either. The characters do this weird thing that really made me laugh as well, like they would speak in English and then they would just throw in a French word and it just kind of cracked me up because I've got such an American English accent. and then all of a sudden they're just speaking French for like half a sentence and then go back. It was odd, but it made me laugh, and it was a part of the charm.
Why did you choose to meet in this convent?
It was my idea. Voyez-vous, I stay here whenever my obligations bring me to Paris.
So what did I think of Steelrising overall, you may wonder? Well, I've got to say, I enjoyed my overall experience. Despite some of the negatives with the story and a bit of that AA jank, it's a good looking, and despite using formulas that we know work, they try to expand it and reinvent the wheel, and with a decent amount of success. It's your perfect 7 out of 10. It's a great mid-shelf game, but it kind of got me thinking, and I want to talk and have a conversation about AA and why it's important. I know I've mentioned this a lot in this review, and for those who are not sure what AA means, put simply, it's a lower budget version of AAA games. It might be an independent company backed by a bigger publisher. They try to achieve the level of AAA, but due to restrictions with the budget, less marketing, they sometimes fail to reach those heights. That's not me saying AAA is better. In fact, the state of a lot of AAA games, I find myself being more attached to the indie and AA scene. With each of these, let's say, categories, whether it's AAA, double, or indie, there are some great games, there are some bad games, but I always feel the heart and passion when it comes to AA or indie. Let me give you an example of some of these games. You've got stuff like Sinking City, Hellblade: Sword and Sacrifice, Alice Madness Returns, Psychonauts. These are just a few examples, but games like this have been around for generations. When I think about growing up, and even today, these are the games that stick with me. The times that I used to walk into the local game store and see this obscure niche cover to a game that I've never heard about. It usually looks unique, and it's sat in between your Call of Duty, your GTAs, an obscure developer that isn't Bethesda or Activision. And you feel like you need to explore these because it's so different. And especially it's better nowadays because you can just scroll through the stores online with a PSN, Steam or Game Pass. I am forever wondering and finding new games that I haven't seen 50 trailers for, and I've not seen them on the cover of magazines. And on a personal level, these are the games that helped shape me and my gaming. You've got the hidden gems like Spec Ops: The Line, the surreal but incredible experiences like Gregory Horror Show. And I'm sure if you look back you will remember those experiences too. Did you ever grow up playing Jaws Unleashed on the PS2 or Bullet Witch on the Xbox 360? Did you get addicted to State of Decay? Or did you get hooked on the world of Deadly Premonition? And now please don't get this confused with you thinking that I hate AAA, because I love those just as much. But after your Last of Us, after your God of Wars, these are the games that clean that palette. They let you delve into something unique, a little bit different. Yes, they may not look as good or play as good, but they have ways to leave lasting impressions on you. I would implore anyone who doesn't really like to explore games and come out of their comfort zone to try and take a gamble on a title like this. And there are so many that you can try for free or get really cheap, whether it's on Game Pass, PSN Premium, Steam sales, so you don't have to even splash out the quids. So next time you boot up your Far Cry or your Call of Duty, just think, after this session I'm going to download one of those and I'm going to give it a go. Go and try something like Vampire or Maneater. Get your PS2 out of the attic and play, I don't know, I Ninja. You have to give them time because they don't have the means to put Horizon, Spider-Man budgets on them, but you will find something in them, I promise. Go on GOG, you can grab The Suffering for £2. And if these games are not what you want, then that's okay. But you will never know if you don't try. Give Steelrising a go, if what I said piqued your interest. This game came out in September this year. It's hitting about average reviews with critics, but I do know some people that actually really love this. But I hope you enjoyed this little discussion, and if you want to leave a comment on a AA game that defined you, or a game that you loved, or even a game that you feel like you want to go back and play after watching this video, I want to say a massive thank you for your wonderful support, your views, likes, subscriptions. It means so much. And I'm going to go now because I want to go play Shadow of the Damned for the 10th time. So with that, pieces, juices, and Deuces Pieces.
Thanks for calling Angel Kiss, sugar. I'm not wearing anything but a smile. How about you?
Oh my god, 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 shawing, shawing, shawing!
Now that is a big boner.